This is Valmiki Ramayan, Season 3, Episode 4. King Dashrath succumbs to grief. Sumantra had delivered his report. Once they were alone, Kausalya lashed out at Dashrath. "Oh Maharaj, what have you done? Did you ever think whether Sita will be able to bear all this? And Ram, the invincible, has been felled by his own father. You have destroyed this kingdom and all its ministers, this empire and all its citizens. You have ruined yourself. You have destroyed me and my son, only to please Kaikeyi and Bharat." Dashrath was a broken man, head bent down in shame, his body shaking. He said with folded hands, "I beg of you, have mercy on me. Please don't say such things to me." Remember, in Season 2, when Dashrath had pleaded with Kaikeyi, she had taken it as a sign of weakness and had become even more aggressive. But Kausalya was different. She burst out crying, held the king's hands over her head respectfully, and was deeply apologetic. "Please forgive me. I should not have said these things. The pain and sorrow of losing my son caused me to speak like this. I understand dharma, and I also know that you always uphold the truth." This was some respite for Dashrath, but the immense pain and grief was surely taking a toll. His health was failing as the hours ticked by. The evening turned into night, the 6th night since Ram had left. Dashrath was reminded of an incident that had happened many years ago. He said to Kausalya, "It is indeed true that there is no escape from the fruits of one's karma. Why am I surprised at what I am having to face today? Once, when we were not yet married, and I was a young prince, I had gone hunting. Labdha shabdena Kausalye, kumarena dhanushmata, kumara shabdavedhiti, maya papamidam kritam." You know, I was famous then as a great archer. Everyone said, "Prince Dashrath is a Shabdavedhi. He can perfectly aim an arrow at the source of a sound, even if the source is not visible." But my reputation also led me to this mistake. This happened in the forest near the Sarayu River. It was late at night, and the rainy season had begun. In pitch darkness, my bow armed, I was waiting for some animal to come to the riverside. And that's when I heard a gurgling sound. I thought an elephant was drinking water, and I shot my arrow at the source of that sound. And then I heard a man scream and fall into the water. He said, "Who is trying to kill me? I am an ascetic. How can an ascetic be attacked? I have not harmed anyone." I had made a terrible mistake. There was no elephant. It had been the sound of a pot being filled. I ran up to him in panic. He was grievously hurt. My arrow stuck in his chest. He was covered with mud and blood. He looked at me with bloodshot eyes and said, "Why did you do this? What have I done to you? I was only here to collect some water for my father and mother. They are blind and frail with age. They cannot survive without me. With just one deadly arrow, you have killed all 3 of us." He was writhing in pain and on the verge of death. But with great effort, he told me the way to his ashram and asked that I take some water to his parents and tell them what had happened. He then pleaded with me to pull the arrow out of his body as it was hurting him immensely. But as soon as I did that, he passed away. I filled the pot and went to the Muni's ashram. I somehow told his parents what had happened. The news crushed them, but they also recognized that it had been a mistake. I took them back to the riverside. They grieved next to their son's body for a long time. And when I made the funeral pyre, they both walked into the fire and killed themselves. With their son gone, the blind couple had nothing to live for. Valmiki has narrated this story in detail in the 63rd and 64th sargas of the Ayodhya Kand. The conversations between Dashrath, the Muni, and his old parents tell us a lot about how the three lived in their ashram. The descriptions are generally what we would expect. Their time was spent in the study of scriptures and discussions on them. The son was regular with his Sandhya Upasana and other daily rites. Valmiki has repeatedly used the words Rishi, Muni, and Tapasvi to describe all three of them. But there is one detail about this family that takes us, the modern readers, by surprise. The Muni's father was a Vaishya by birth, and the mother had belonged to the Shudra community. Note, Valmiki has mentioned this only in passing. For him, this was nothing extraordinary. Clearly, inter-community marriages were common then. Also, the spiritual path, the ascetic life and study of scriptures was open to all sections of society. Dashrath continued, "But just before the ascetic's father killed himself, he said to me, 'If you had killed my son, an ascetic, knowingly, you and your entire clan would have perished. I know it was a mistake, but you will still have to pay for it. Just as I am suffering now. Evan tvam putra shokena rajan kalang karishyasi. O king, you shall also die from the sorrow of losing your son.'" How true those words had turned out. With his health failing, Dashrath was so weak by now that he had also lost his eyesight. He was just like the blind old man, pining for his lost son. Kshina snehasya deepasya sanrakta rashmayo yatha. He was like a lamp that has run out of oil, its rays fading. And later that night, Dashrath passed away in his sleep. Iti, her, asa. That is how it happened.